think you go to opm.gov/SES, and you'll get a very clear definition of ECQs. Not only what's listed there, but very clear breakdown, detailed breakdown on what each of those components mean. And I would encourage you to look at that. And I call it the ECQ roadmap, because if you want to advance from where you are now, and you might not be interested in the SES yet, but the definition that's laid out in the ECQs gives you a roadmap on what you need to get there. And I would encourage you to even try to fill out your ECQs, respond to the ECQ questions. And the places where you have issues, where you have challenges in filling out, are the places where you have gaps right now in your career and your experience to get there. And then that gives you a roadmap on what you're missing and what you need to fill out. Right? But if you notice in the ECQs, there's nothing in there about technical. Right? And I'm from IT, but we're not talking about technical from an IT perspective. It's just whatever your expertise is in your job and the technical aspect of it is not in there. All right, it talks about leading change, leading people, business acumen, achieving results, and building coalitions. And none of those things have the technical. Well, why not? Isn't that needed? Yes, but that's already assumed by the time you get to that level. And these are the things that they're looking for. So if you haven't checked that out, all right, so beyond technical, what do you have? And I call it the 3 Ps. You have the people, process, and politics. All right, and those things, those 3 Ps are what allows you to build up your leadership skills and what will eventually hopefully give you the leadership presence that you need. And the technical is the easy part, right? At that point, all you should know that. So when we talk process, what are we talking about? There are a lot of processes beyond what you do technically that you need to understand. Right? And the government, I know, no matter where you go, you have the budget process, you have the acquisition process, and you have the HR process that you should learn, even though you're not working in there and you don't want to become experts per se, but you need to know enough to navigate those processes to get what you need to get done when you start moving up in the manager, supervisor, and leadership positions. All right. And not only does it help you do your job better and get things done, but by understanding the processes of your agency, right? Whatever your agency strategic goals are and the processes that your agency goes through, and everyone is different. You need to understand enough and go beyond just your technical expertise in the realm that you work in so that you can start speaking the language of the business. All right? When you tell people about your technical expertise, their eyes are going to glaze over. They're not going to understand. But when you start talking about cost reduction, about business productivity, about efficiency improvement, that's the language that they're going to understand. And until you learn that language, you're not going to get your point across, right? So you need to understand the processes to get to that point. You need to be aware of your environment so you can see things like this. All right, so people. I have a little saying, if it wasn't for the people, there wouldn't be any problems. All right, people are a pain in the neck. But you can't do your job. I don't care what is it that you do. You can't do your job without dealing with people, right? Without working with other people to get things done. So you really need to build up the people skills. And I don't care how smart you are, how good you are in your job, in your technical area, if you can't communicate that knowledge, other people are not going to know that you're smart or that you're the expert. You got to learn how to communicate. You got to learn how to deal with people. Your interpersonal skills, your social skills are very important. And it's more than just IQ, right? There's also EQ and CQ. Who knows what EQ stands for? Emotional intelligence, right? How you respond to situations and to people. What about CQ? That's a cultural intelligence, right? Everybody is different. And, here we're in an AAPI conference, and certainly there are traits that are specific to AAPIs. But if you just even look within the AAPI community, there is such a diverse community. There's no way you can learn all the different culture aspects. But the people that you work with, you need to understand from a cultural perspective what makes them different, what the experience is, and what lens do they see the world through, so that you can understand how to work with them, how to respond with them, and that's part of the cultural intelligence that you need to build up. This works. All right, politics. Now, politics, I'm talking about the little p. We're in D.C. I'm not talking about the big P politics. But politics, it has a negative connotation, right? It's not a dirty word. What is politics? Politics really with the people that you work with, and also people outside of your division or your agency. You need to build up that network, and you need to take the time, effort to feed that network, so that when things need to get done, when you walk down the hall and talk to your coworker, it's very easy to get things done because you've already built up the rapport and built up the relationship. And they say, what, don't burn bridges. So later on, when you need something, you talk to that person. They're not going to sabotage your effort because they don't like you or whatever, right? So building the network is sort of the politics. And when you look at getting things done, it's about people management. It's about change management. There's a lot of resistance to change, no matter what it is that you do, that you're trying to do that's new. If it's new, people don't like it, right? So part of it is managing that change, and it takes the network and relationship building to find champions and certain groups that will sort of lead a charge and say, hey, this is a good thing. And by doing that, then other people will come along, right? And usually from the IT world, I find that everything that you implement, you have about 20% that are sort of the champions that like it, that want it. 20% that are basically, no matter what you do, they're not going to come along because they just want to stay the way they are. And then there's a 60% in the middle that you give them enough benefits, and you explain it to them, and you give the training and communications that they'll come along. And if there's 20% champions that help pull them, then they're willing to come with it. This doesn't work. All right, so another part of politics is knowing your organization. So this is a sort of typical org chart, and let's imagine you're up there where the circle is. Now, if you want to get promoted, how many people up there, who up there has to say yes for you to get promoted? What do you think? Speak up. The head and the boss, okay? And there could be, multiple levels, right? But really, for you to get promoted, everybody on that chart has to say yes. But not say yes in terms of they get them all in a meeting and they say, all right, do you agree? But if any one of them say no, then your chances of being promoted is being jeopardized, right? Even if it's the admin person, right? To your boss, hey, this guy always comes around, and he's a really weird guy, is always, asking this or whatever, or a peer says, this guy can't be trusted, or this guy, stabs somebody back. If anything negative about you gets out there, and there's a person that don't want you to get promoted, the chances are you're not going to get promoted. So you need to understand your organization and understand, this is sort of part of the politics. Not that you're out there campaigning per se, but you need to be aware. So in terms of getting promotion, you really need to start by taking ownership of your career. look at the ECQs, look at what's missing, see where you want to go, set goals, and start filling in the gaps, right? And a lot of us, it's our own mental barriers that prevents us from getting there. Oh, we're not good enough. Oh, I'm not comfortable. Whatever. You need to take away those mental barriers and start charging forward, right? Step out of your comfort zone. And for a lot of APIs, it's, you got to speak up and get noticed, right? If you sit there quiet in the corner, you're in a meeting, you don't speak up, you're not going to get noticed. And part of getting promoted is first getting noticed. People are going to be aware that you're there and know that you're doing a good job, right? So ask what is required for promotion. Right? If you don't know, ask. And guess what? When you ask, sometimes your supervisor will just very clearly tell you. Sometimes, guess what? They haven't thought about it. And by asking, it crystallizes in their mind, and they can sort of get a definition and then tell you what's expected. And that sets the groundwork. All right, develop a career plan. Promote your accomplishments. Now, I've been in government almost 10 years now, and I found out every year, if you're going to spend time on something, what's the most important thing that you can spend your time on? You should spend your time on. Guess what that is? Anybody? Your self-assessment. All right? Every year, make sure you focus time on your self-assessments. They're very important because that's part of promoting your accomplishments. All right, guess what? Your supervisor has all these other people. They get busy. They forget what you've done. And if you don't take the time to put it down, and they're also lazy, put it down in such a way they can easily copy and paste and put it in your appraisal, that is, to me, the most important thing that you can spend your time on, right? And that's part of promoting accomplishments. So if you're not doing that, make sure you do that. All right, when challenges and opportunities come along, accept them. Don't say, I'm not ready for that yet. Oh, I don't know. Hey, guess what? You don't get the opportunities, whether an acting job, a detail, or whatever. If it comes along, accept it. And then, you'll learn through the process. It's a growing process. It's a challenge. That's what it's supposed to be. But if you don't accept it, then the opportunity goes by, right? And act the part. If you want to be a supervisor, if you want to be a manager, act the part. You don't need a title. You don't need approval to do it. You can start taking on the responsibilities and the leadership, start volunteering for roles, running workshops, not workshops, but work groups, whatever. But you need to start taking the part without saying, oh, I don't have the title, so I can't do it. If you wait for the title, it's probably not going to come. But once people start seeing you doing it, then you can get there. Now, this is a chart on AAPI representation at the higher levels in comparison to the other groups. And I think what's very interesting is you see, this goes from 13 to SES. On the right, you see the majority white population in a federal employee space. It goes up as the levels go up, right? If you look at the other minorities besides the APIs, it goes down, it's a trend down when the levels go up. If you look at APIs, it's kind of interesting, it sort of plateaus. We as a group plateau at the 14 and 15, and then there's a big drop when we get to the SES level. So why is that? Well, there's not, let's say, one answer for that, but if you look at some of the stereotypes out there, some of the surveys, you'll see that there's a stereotype that APIs as a group are passive, all right? We're compliant with whatever the rules are out there. We're technically proficient, but we're not seen as sort of leadership quality, leadership material, all right? And that's the perception in a lot of people out there. I don't think that's correct, but that's one of the causes of that big barrier when you get to the SES level. And if you have the aspiration to get there, you need to break beyond that stereotype and that perception, right? Right or wrong, the perception is there. But how do we as individuals each get beyond that and prove that we are leadership material, that we do have qualities, and we can step up to those positions? So, just very quickly, I'm from the Merit Systems Production Board, and how many people have heard of MSPB? more people than normal. But what we do is we make sure, what we're called the guardians of merit. We make sure people are treated fairly according to the merit principles. So basically, you're rated based on your performance and nothing else, right? So from a technical expert perspective, you can say, hey, I know more than that other person. How come they're getting promoted and I'm not? Well, your performance is not just based on your technical expertise, right? It's beyond that. It's all the other things that we talked about. So you have to be good on all those things as well when you compare yourself to the next person in terms of getting promoted, right? Because merit is not just on your technical expertise. And my other hat with Ajin is there to help AAPIs get into the leadership positions. Our whole mission is to help break through that glass ceiling that we just saw in the chart. And right now we have almost 300 members, 62 of which are at the SES ranks, and 105 or so at the GS 15. So more than half at the GS 15 and above. And that's what we're there for. And this is my last slide. Thank you. So part of the things that we're doing to help people get there, we have a leadership conference coming up on June 7th locally at the Double Tree in Arlington. And also, you might have heard about it recently, we kicked off the first ever SCS development program focused on AAPIs. And this year we had 119 applications, and we selected 20 candidates. They're all GS 15 that's going through the program now. And we were very pleasantly surprised by the number of applications and the number of highly qualified AAPIs. And we wish we could have accepted more, but we were only able to take 20 because of some of the resources and the number of mentors that we have to assign to these candidates. But when I asked that group how many have written ECQs prior to the application process, about 7 of them said they've never written ECQs before. So just by opening up the application process prompted them to really think about that. One person said they took a week off to write ECQs. And guess what? If you want to write good ECQs, that's what it takes, right? So that's why I'm encouraging you now to start looking at it, to start thinking about it. And you can start putting, you don't have to take a week off to do it, but once you start doing it, you'll see what it takes. You'll see what's the qualities that are being looked for, and then you can start moving yourself towards that process.